I'm Alessia, and today I will be talking to you about 17th century female painter Artemisia Gentileschi and the ways she defined the new idea of women in her works in dialogue with contemporary artistic, literary, and theatrical production. Artemisia is best known for her paintings of strong and often violent female figures she completed in Rome, Florence, and Naples. For example, the Judas slain Holofernes, now in the Uffizi Gallery in Florence, and the Jail in Caesarea, now at the Budapest Museum of Fine Arts. My talk today will focus on a less known phase of Artemisia's life, the one in Venice, where she stayed from 1627 to 1630. This period of Artemisia's career is, in a sense, a real enigma for art historians, because very few of her works from this time have survived. We do know, however, that Artemisia was in contact with the most important intellectuals and artists of the city, and in this context, she played a prominent role in defining new modes of representation of women in 17th century arts. From an engraving of French artist Jérôme David, we know that Artemisia was a member of the Accademia dei Desiosi, better known as Accademia degli Incogniti, literally the Academy of the Unknown, which became an important center for the exchange of ideas and for debates among its members. The Academy also hosted among its members the first scriptwriters of opera, a new theatrical genre born in Venice, which brought together acting, singing, and music. What is most interesting of opera plots in relation to Artemisia's works is the presence of strong, complex, and nuanced female protagonists who often defy social and moral norms which discipline women's behavior in early modern era. Artemisia was also in contact with important female writers active in Venice, including Lucrezia Marinella, Arcangela Tarabotti, and Moderata Fonte. In their treatises, these writers, for the first time in history of literature, strongly criticized the social inferiority of women, while claiming the rights to express themselves and contesting the rigid gender distinctions. During her time in Venice, Artemisia often represented strong female protagonists in her works, both from biblical tradition, for example, the heroine Astor, which you see down there, and from ancient myths, such as Lucretia or Medea. By comparing her works to contemporary opera plots or treatises by women writers, one can notice how Artemisia's works must have been strongly influenced by the debate on women's nature and worth of contemporary Venice. At the same time, Artemisia's works, who was already famous for her strong female characters, must have pushed even further the implications of the debate and probably inspired the strong female protagonists of opera. Venetian permissive laws and the birth of opera allowed women for the first time to act and sing, a real exception in early modern Italy. Intellectuals reflected on this novelty, progressively moving away from a traditional description of women's voices and bodies as passive matter or as a mere source of sexual attraction. For example, the performances of singer Anna Renzi, also as Artemisia, member of the Accademia degli Incogniti, are described in these terms. The action through which one gives a soul and a spirit to things must be governed by the movements of bodies, by gestures, by the expression, and by the voice. Our Signora Anna Renzi masters the scene, intends what she utters, and she utters it so clearly that ears can nothing but desire. Artemisia's works seem to reflect this new empowerment of women's voices, for example, in her Astor in front of Osiris. The painting represents the biblical story of Babylonian king Osiris, who, not knowing that his wife Astor is an Israelite, orders the slaughter of all Jews in his empire. Astor thus bravely decides to appear in front of his husband, and begging for his mercy, saves her people. Artemisia, in accordance with, or maybe inspiring, the new Venetian ideas on women's voices, focuses on Astor's semi-open mouth, through which the queen is about to utter her desperate prayer, and her throat, the source of her voice, where all the light concentrates, in which one of the two servants is kissing as a sign of homage. Women's voices, Artemisia seems to say in her painting, is neither a passive matter nor a source of sexual attraction, but a strong political weapon that can save human lives. Another theme that emerges in Artemisia's works is the spread of luxury dresses in contemporary Venice, especially among females. This became an important topic of debate among intellectuals following the introduction of laws that limited women's access to expensive clothing. Writers like Lucrezia Marinella and Arcangela Tarabotti strongly criticized these measures as a sign of female forced submission to patriarchal law and accused men themselves of languishing in frivolous goods. Artemisia herself seems to have taken a strong stance in this debate. If we look again at Esther in front of Osiris, what is immediately striking of this painting is the contrast between Esther's simple but regal and bright dress and Osiris' rather outdated and dandish outfit, which reminds one of contemporary representations of gypsies, such as the one we see here by Leonello Spada, or comic dresses, for example, the ones designed by Inigo Jones. The contrast here has not only have to do with fashion, it is a moral contraposition between Esther's moral integrity and Osiris' rather precarious control of power, as his unstable position on the throne seems to suggest. The visual contrast also echoes a passage from Lucrezia Marinella's The Defects and Vices of Man. Under these trappings of courage and valor hide courtly souls of rabbits or hunted hares. Here Marinella is referring to man, and it is the same of all their artifices. Since men behave this way, why should not women seek to amend the beauty they possess through artifice? During her time in Venice, Artemisia represented not only heroic deeds such as Esther's, but also tragic actions like Medea's. According to one of the versions of the Greek myth, Medea, abandoned by her husband Jason, finds revenge by killing her 2 children, an action that in a provocative way went against all norms that discipline women's behavior. The violent infanticides committed by women were a popular theme in contemporary Venice, as emerges, for example, in this painting by Padovanino representing Theoxena of Thessaly from another Greek myth. This theme was also central in opera, for example, in the plot of the Incoronazione di Poppea by another member of the Accademia degli Incogniti, Gianfrancesco Busenello. In the plot, Ottavia, abandoned by her husband Nero, tries to find revenge by ordering his killing. But in the end, this attempt fails and she is sent into exile. Although their actions have very different outcomes, what both Medea and Ottavia share is the rebellion to the behavior expected by women in these cases, chastity and forbearance. Medea and Ottavia become emblems of a new idea of women's agency and right to determine their destiny that for the first time in history of creative arts finds a space both in theater and in paintings. By comparing Artemisia's paintings to contemporary opera plots and treatises by women writers, one can notice how her works are not isolated. They are part of a larger web of new representations of femininity that penetrated in art, literature, and theater. These works intersect with social and cultural changes and were the premise for a new powerful claim of women's independence and freedom from the most rigid impositions of patriarchal society. Thank you.